What if I told you not one, but multiple monster winter storms are lining up to hammer the country? If you love snow, you're about to hit the jackpot. And if you don't, you absolutely need to know what's coming, because there's no escaping this. The first wave, winter storm number 1, is already making its move, with forecasts calling for over a foot of snow across the heart of the Midwest. First, we'll break down that immediate threat step by step, but what's lurking right behind it for next week? That's a whole other beast. And make sure you stick around to the end, because we're going to connect the dots on this entire insane pattern and reveal what it means for the rest of December. I've uncovered a reason to believe this is just the beginning, that we're going to keep getting these relentless shots of Arctic air, and when they collide with moisture, you know what that means, an explosive setup for even more winter storms. We'll expose that pattern at the very end of the video. Ready to get ahead of this? If you want to stay prepared and not get caught off guard, you've come to the right place. I'm dedicated to giving you the unvarnished truth about what's heading your way, so if you want to stay informed, hit that subscribe button. And if you get value from this breakdown, tap the like button. Let's get into it. All right. Time is critical, so let's get right to the action. We'll start by tracking winter storm number 1. This thing is already creeping in, but the real show starts tomorrow morning, and that's where we'll pick up the timeline. Quick heads up, I'm running on Eastern time, so when you see 9 a.m. on the screen, just back it up 1 hour for Central time. Okay, we're locking on to the NAM model here, and it's painting a very clear picture. We can already see this concentrated zone of heavy precipitation. Think of it like a pipeline of intense moisture flowing across the Dakotas, taking dead aim at Nebraska. This is the storm's fuel. Now, let's push the clock forward in about 6-hour jumps. What happens next? By 2 or 3 o'clock tomorrow afternoon, the first flakes begin to fly in parts of Iowa. It's also starting to move into the far southwest corner of Minnesota, creating what looks like a narrow band of snow. But don't let that fool you. This ribbon of snow cutting through the Dakotas is unleashing incredibly heavy snowfall rates wherever it sets up. But here's the first twist. This storm has a razor-sharp edge. Rapid City might see absolutely nothing, while just down the road, Pierre gets hammered. As we advance into tomorrow evening, around 8 or 9 p.m., the storm kicks into high gear, and that's when the truly heavy snow starts burying parts of Iowa. Now, you might see some green mixed in with the blue. Normally, green means rain, but here's a critical detail you have to know. In this setup, that green is not rain. It's indicating some of the most intense snowfall rates. So ignore what you think green means. It's all snow. And right here over Omaha, a true wintry battleground is about to erupt between the different types of precipitation. So don't just focus on the snow. This is a messy, complicated system with a dangerous wintry mix of sleet and even some freezing rain. In fact, a glaze of ice is being forecast for this region. Don't miss the next part where we pinpoint that threat. And while the Midwest braces for impact, we can't ignore the western edge of this system. Snow will be flying in Casper, Wyoming, and over the Colorado Rockies. The snow is still coming down back in Bismarck and Pierre, but as we keep this moving forward, we head into the dead of night. Let's jump to around 1 or 2 in the morning. This is when the snow finally invades Minneapolis, blanketing the city under the cover of darkness. But here's the million-dollar question. Just how far north is this monster snowband going to push? While it's hammering the Dakotas, a sneaky second wave of snow is already creeping into western Nebraska. And this is where it gets tricky. For places like Lincoln, it's a messy, wintry mix, while this model run shows Omaha getting absolutely buried. So why the messy mix of sleet and freezing rain? There's a hidden battle raging in the atmosphere. A low-pressure system is injecting a stubborn layer of warm air high above the ground. This means even if it's freezing where you are, those perfect snowflakes are tragically melting on their way down. This is the critical detail that changes everything. All right. Let's push the timeline forward, because what happens next is where this storm's true personality is revealed. You're going to want to see this. This is the moment that, frankly, is blowing my mind. I've been chatting with folks over in Street Lewis on X, and their forecast is an absolute nail-biter. Street Louis is on a meteorological roller coaster. Picture this. It's around 6, maybe 7 o'clock on Saturday morning. And get this, the potential for incredibly heavy, wet snow dumping on the city. I'm talking about those giant, fluffy flakes, the size of cotton balls. I was joking on X earlier that we'd see snowflakes the size of minivans, obviously not literally, but you get a sense of the sheer intensity we're looking at. But this could be a shocking start to your Saturday, a thick blanket of heavy, wet snow. The only question is, will it last? I have serious doubts. But don't go anywhere. Now, let's jump north to Chicago, where an entirely different war is being waged. By daybreak on Saturday, Chicago is getting absolutely pummeled. You can probably tell I'm a huge snow fan stuck here in central South Carolina. I'm living vicariously through you. We almost never see it, so I am genuinely excited for you, though I know not everyone shares that feeling. But whether you love it or hate it, this is a serious event. A heavy, wet snow is burying Des Moines, Dubuque is getting slammed, and Davenport, Quincy, Chicago, Milwaukee, and Oshkosh are all in the thick of it. And it's just beginning its assault on Green Bay. Now, let's fast forward to a crucial moment. Midday Saturday, right around 11 o'clock in the morning, right at lunchtime, nearly the entire state of Iowa is a winter wonderland, while the snow continues to pound Omaha and Lincoln. I know I can't name every town, but Minneapolis, listen up. You are walking a tightrope right on the northern fringe of the absolute jackpot zone. But make no mistake, it is more than cold enough for snow. Meanwhile, Green Bay and Madison are getting hammered. I mean, just look at this. These deep purple corridors you see right here, that signifies ridiculously heavy snowfall. But now, let's check back in on Street Louis, because the plot is about to twist. Do you see this? The dream starts as a blizzard and turns into a nightmare. You might get a quick few, maybe even several inches of that beautiful heavy snow, only for it to be washed away by a cold, miserable rain. Talk about a heartbreaking forecast, right? Now, there is one silver lining. A blast of colder air will follow, flash freezing whatever snow you do get. But don't get comfortable, because the storm isn't done. Let's keep this moving. And I know we're taking this step by step, but every single detail in this timeline is critical for what's coming next. You won't want to miss the next part. Here we are, late Saturday afternoon, around 4 or 5 o'clock, and the storm unleashes its full fury over the entire state of Michigan. We're talking both the upper and lower peninsulas. But wait, let's rewind for just a second. There's a crucial detail for another major city we can't just gloss over. Look at Indianapolis. This is a huge population center, and this model is showing a stunning start. Heavy, wet, and accumulating snow from the get-go. Don't let that green on the map fool you. That represents massive, wet snowflakes coming down hard. It's the same shocking setup brewing for Evansville. Just like the tragic story in Street Louis, it could begin as a full-blown winter storm. And it gets even crazier. Because even parts of western Kentucky could see a shocking burst of extremely heavy snow before that dreaded quick changeover to rain. And as we push into Saturday evening, the final picture becomes clear. A full-blown raging snowstorm has completely taken over the Midwest and the Great Lakes. But what happens on Sunday? That's a story for our next video. What does it look like when a classic winter storm completely swallows a major city? Just look at Chicago right now, buried in the middle of a Saturday evening snowstorm. Let's be honest, a lot of you have felt completely ripped off by winter so far, and as a huge winter weather fan, I feel your pain. Now, I know plenty of you up there are not fans of the snow, but for those who are, your time has finally come. Toledo and Detroit are already getting hammered with snow, but what happens when this storm really cranks up in the middle of the night? This is as far as the NAM model can see, taking us from Saturday night into Sunday morning. We're talking midnight. And this entire blizzard just keeps raging. Can you believe this? Peoria and Springfield are still getting buried, Chicago is still in a whiteout, and look at the absolute fire hose of snow hitting Detroit, all of Michigan, and now Cleveland. We're seeing intense bans over Canton and Columbus, and here's a twist, it's even snowing hard in parts of Cincinnati and down into the northern hills of Kentucky. Now, this is where the model cuts off, but the storm is far from over. So what happens next? You won't want to miss this next part. Pushing into Sunday morning, we finally see the beginning of the end as this monster storm starts to track east. Most of Michigan is still getting blasted with snow. But look closely at Ohio, a huge change is on the way. You could start with that perfect, heavy, wet, packing snow, but then it's going to switch over to just plain old rain before a new wave of cold air rushes in behind it. And I promised I'd show some love to the Northeast. And I've got a huge update for you. The forecast has trended significantly colder. By midday Sunday, this is what moves in. A potential blanket of heavy, wet snow across all of New York State. This includes Vermont, New Hampshire, Maine, and northern Pennsylvania, especially in those classic cold air trapping regions like the Allegheny Mountains. We're also talking about western Maryland, the highlands of West Virginia, and right along the Blue Ridge and Appalachian Mountains of Virginia getting in on this. But here's the danger zone. This pink you see could be a treacherous layer of freezing rain, while the orange is a nasty sleet and freezing rain mix. However, as we get into Sunday evening, another plot twist. Many of these areas will just switch over to a simple cold rain. For everyone on the I-95 corridor, it's not your turn yet. But stay tuned, because I have a special section with a glimmer of hope just for you. So, the interior Northeast is getting the bulk of the snow, especially in the higher elevations. And then the fun continues. A blast of cold air will filter in right behind it, which could trigger a period of intense lake effect snow. Don't put the shovels away yet. All right, this is the moment you've all been waiting for. How much snow are you actually going to get? Let's break down the totals, moving from west to east. Now, I know I don't have a huge audience tuning in from Montana, but I'd feel terrible leaving you out completely. So for my friends in Montana, this is what you can expect from the storm. Go ahead and pause the screen right here if you need to. Now we push east into North Dakota. Bismarck, you're looking at 2 to 5 inches of snow. Dickinson, also 2 to 5. Fargo, it looks like you're just a bit too far north to get the heaviest amounts. Now, let's drop down to South Dakota. And this is where things get really interesting, and the snowfall amounts start to jump. You guys are going to have to forgive me for a second, even though you can't actually remind me since this isn't live. I absolutely have to pull up the watches and warnings map because it tells a critical part of the story that's unfolding right now. And here it is, a major update. We have had a significant upgrade from a winter storm watch to a full-blown winter storm warning across parts of South Dakota in just the last couple of hours. For Pierre, that means 2 to 6 inches of snow. Sioux Falls, a solid 4 to 6 inches. Brookings, 4 to 6, and Watertown, 2 to 4 inches. In Aberdeen, you're looking at 3 to 5 inches. But this is exactly where the forecast gets complicated. Omaha could see 3 to 8 inches of snow. But then you look at Lincoln. Are you ready for this? You could get just an inch, or you could get a whopping half a foot. So why the huge difference? It all comes down to a battle with ice. In Sioux City, the snow totals jump to 5 to 11 inches. But here's the twist. A glaze of ice is also possible in this area, maybe a couple of tenths of an inch. And for those in York, this is critical. Forecasts are calling for a tenth to a quarter of an inch of straight freezing rain. This entire region is the battleground zone, where a nasty wintry mix could cause chaos. Now, let's shift our focus, because the southern half of Minnesota is about to get hammered. For Minneapolis itself, the models are pointing to 3 to 7 inches of snow, and that's why you're already under a winter weather advisory. But don't be surprised if that gets upgraded to a full-blown winter storm warning. You need to be ready for that. You are right on the northern edge of the heaviest snow bands, so a tiny shift in the storm's track changes everything. Keep checking for updates. Now, travel down to the southern parts of Minnesota, and the numbers become staggering. Anywhere from half a foot to a full foot of snow is on the table. It's a massive storm. Let's continue moving east and see what's bearing down on Iowa. Listen up, Iowa. You are in the bullseye for incredibly heavy, wet, back-breaking snow. A huge part of the state will almost certainly see at least half a foot. The only places that might dodge the worst of it are in the far southwest, where the low-pressure system gets too close. But for Des Moines, brace yourselves for 8 to 13 inches. Ames, you're looking at 9 to 14. Fort Dodge is in that exact same boat. Waterloo is prepping for 9 to 13 inches, and Dubuque could see 8 to 12. And here's another hazard we're tracking. A bit of freezing rain could mix in. Now, let me be precise, not a couple of tenths, but a few hundredths of an inch of ice. A couple of tenths would be a crippling ice storm. That more significant freezing rain threat is still possible, but it's confined to the southwestern corner of the state. And of course, I have to show some love to the Kansas City area. In northern Missouri, Kirksville, you're on the hook for 4 to 8 inches of snow. Bethany is looking at 2 to 6, with Maryville at 1 to 5 inches. But what about Kansas City itself? You'll likely see a wintry mix as this system first pushes in, but I am not expecting any truly severe winter weather for you. Now, don't miss this next part. We're jumping up to Wisconsin. Green Bay, prepare for 6 to 8 inches of snow. The air is plenty cold enough for snow in your area. You're just a bit too far north of the absolute jackpot zone. So expect anywhere from 4 to 8 inches of snow across this region. But remember this, the further south you go, the deeper the snow will be. And that snow is definitely in the forecast. Further south, Eau Claire sees 3 to 6 inches, but Madison gets hit with 7 to 12. Platteville is in for 8 to 12 inches of snow. La Crosse, 6 to 10 inches. Go ahead and pause the screen right here if you need to find your town. You know, it's really important to me that you see this. I try to pack these videos with as many detailed graphics as I can, and sometimes it's frustrating that the algorithm doesn't push these videos out because I truly believe, and this isn't me trying to brag or anything, but I feel like I'm one of the most detailed weather YouTubers out here that nobody seems to know about. And I get it. Not everyone wants to sit through a weather forecast that lasts 30 minutes. I understand that completely. But this is the only way I know how to do this right. And it's the way I love doing it. Getting as deep into the details as possible so you know exactly what's coming. Okay, back to the jaw-dropping numbers. Milwaukee is bracing for 9 to 18 inches of snow. Yes, you heard that right. Janesville is in the exact same forecast. 9 to 18 inches. We are talking about the potential for 1.5 feet of snow in these areas. We're even knocking on the 20-inch mark in places like Port Washington. This is just incredible. And let me be clear, this is not lake effect snow. This is a massive, good old-fashioned blockbuster snowstorm. The Quad Cities are looking at 8 to 12. Freeport, 8 to 13 inches of snow. Princeton, 8 to 12. And Peoria, 7 to 11. And now, the moment we've been building up to, Chicago. I'm pulling up the latest data right now. Come on, give me the update. What does it have in store for the Windy City? All right, let's dive into Chicago. And there's a big reason I think they're being cautious. But the real question is, will this map even let me show you? I knew I should have just left the graphic up, but even if it's fighting me, the numbers are what matter. Right now, Chicago is officially on the hook for 6 to 8 inches of snow. Just up the road in Rockford, they're bracing for an even bigger hit, a whopping 8 to 12 inches. And believe me, the Chicago Weather Service site always pulls these strange stunts. It's not my internet, I promise you. Their site just has a mind of its own. But hopefully you can see the numbers clearly. Down in Joliet, it's a similar story, 6 to 8 inches. But let me tell you, Chicago, that number could be a massive understatement. They're being conservative, and with a storm this size, can you really blame them? But what happens when we travel further south in Illinois? This is where things get truly wild. Lincoln is expecting 6 to 12 inches, Bloomington is forecasting 7 to 14, and Peoria, brace yourselves, could see a staggering 9 to 17 inches of snow. And if you're noticing some of these graphics seem a little out of sync, it's simply because the updates are rolling in at different times. This is a live, evolving situation. The real mystery, however, begins the further south we push. The certainty plummets. We're looking at 4 to 8 inches in Litchfield, and then we approach the St. Louis area. Now, the official forecast for St. Louis is a quick 2 to 4 inches of heavy, wet snow. But I'm telling you right now, that feels dangerously wrong. This has all the ingredients to catch everyone completely off guard down there on Saturday morning. Now, I'm going to break down the atmospheric soundings in tomorrow's video, but what I can tell you now is that the setup is locked and loaded for a heavy, wet, paste-like snow right along the Interstate 70 corridor. I mean, we are talking about back-breaking, limb-snapping, heavy stuff. So, you absolutely must keep tuning in for updates around St. Louis. Remember, the official call is 2 to 4 inches, but the potential is so much higher. Now, you can see some other local totals on the screen, but don't miss this next part. We're heading north into Michigan, where more snow is already on the way for the Upper Peninsula. And keep in mind, some of these numbers are combining the lake effect snow that's already falling, so you have to account for that in the final totals. Someone rightly called me out for skipping Michigan in this morning's video. You were 100% right, and I didn't mean to do that. It's just a complex forecast because they're blending that lake effect into the main storm. But let's get to it. Kalamazoo is forecasting 11 to 16 inches of snow. Grand Rapids is right there with 10 to 15 inches. Flint has a huge range, anywhere from 4 to 10. My goodness, a massive amount of snow is on the way. Detroit is looking at 4 to 9 inches. I know my buddy there in Detroit is going to absolutely love this. I always get you two confused, the guy in Detroit and my friend in Upper Michigan. We have Steven and we have Steve. I'm pretty sure Steve is in Detroit. Well, this is shaping up to be a big one for you, man. Enjoy every minute of it, buddy. I'm happy for you. Now, let's talk about northern Indiana, because this region is about to see an all-out winter war. Incredible amounts of snow are coming. Look at these areas. We're talking from half a foot to over a foot of snow forecast. But this is an extremely tricky area. For instance, Indianapolis could get just an inch, or they could get a full half a foot. If the NAM computer model is correct, you're definitely getting that half a foot of snow. Just head up the interstate from there. Lafayette is expecting 5 to 11 inches, and Marion is forecasting 3 to 9 inches of snow. But once you get south of Indianapolis, it becomes an even bigger question mark. A few inches of snow are possible, even likely. And then there's Evansville, down at the bottom of your screen. It's the trickiest spot on the map. You could get nothing at all, or you could get a surprise inch or two. The same goes for Louisville. For Kentucky, I'd say the action is really limited to the western and northern areas, where you might see a dusting. But don't be shocked if a few towns sneak out an inch or two of snow. And now for northern Ohio, a completely different beast. Here we have a dangerous combination of lake effect snow and the main storm system moving in. And this is critical. Folks, this forecast only goes through 7 a.m. on Sunday. That means this isn't the total storm accumulation. This is only the beginning. Stick with me, because in the next video, we're breaking down the second half of this storm, and you won't want to miss it. What's the story for Sunday? While it could shift, Cincinnati is looking at about half an inch of snow, with Columbus getting closer to an inch. Dayton might see an inch or two. But now, let's turn to the real problem area, the Northeast. This is where the forecast gets incredibly tricky. Why is the Northeast so tough to predict? Because we're dealing with two storms at once. You have the relentless lake effect snow machine already firing, and we're about to dump this weekend storm right on top of it. It's a collision of weather systems, mashing everything together into one complicated mess. But here's the crucial takeaway you need to understand. This is shaping up to be a storm for interior New England. The I-95 corridor might think it's off the hook, but hold on. A different, more insidious threat is emerging, a nasty, wintry mix for those vulnerable areas in West Virginia, from western Maryland, across the Allegheny Mountains of Pennsylvania, down into Virginia. But here's the real shocker. This system is diving all the way down into North Carolina, and the results are exactly what we feared. The European model is now flashing a warning signal for ice. It's just a few hundredths of an inch, but that's a huge red flag. That could even creep up to 1/10 of an inch of ice, which is more than enough to cause chaos. A truly nasty wintry mix is on the table for Sunday. We'll lock down those ice totals later, but you have to see what's brewing for next week. Mark your calendars for Monday, December 1st. We've got another monster system to figure out. Watch as this new energy starts to spin up, ready to kickstart our Monday morning. On December 1st, light to moderate snow begins to break out across Colorado, spreading across northern New Mexico and into Kansas. And as this system marches east, you can see the moisture starting to connect, pulling itself together. A band of light snow starts streaking through Oklahoma, pushing from eastern Kansas into Missouri. But will all the pieces connect? It looks like they might, right over northern Arkansas. But will it be snow? Or will it be something far messier, like a wintry mix? Here's a shocking twist. A wintry mix is possible, and you won't believe how far south. I'm talking Memphis, possibly even Little Rock. The plot thickens as we head east. And look at this. Is that heavy snow popping up in Tennessee? Yes, it is. And I believe this is a very real possibility. Now, don't miss the next part. If we follow the European model into the eastern US, here it comes. This is the moment the storm taps into Atlantic moisture and absolutely explodes in strength. By Tuesday morning, it's a cold rain for the southeast. But do you see that terrifying splash of pink on the map? That's a dangerous glaze of freezing rain for the notorious cold air damming regions of the North Carolina mountains. But just to the north, that is heavy snow blanketing Middle Tennessee and Kentucky. And I'm not talking about a few flurries. The model is painting a band of heavy, accumulating snow. How this scenario unfolds is the million-dollar question. A little light snow lingers to the north, but the engine of this storm is a powerful 997 millibar low cranking just off the mid-Atlantic coast. A storm that strong has all the power it needs. But here's the critical question. Will the cold air be there to support it? Right now, the Carolinas look like they'll be stuck with rain. The same goes for most of Virginia and the Delmarva Tidewater area. But the second you cross into northern Virginia, it changes to snow. West Virginia gets snow, parts of Ohio and eastern Kentucky get snow, and that snow just keeps coming. As we move forward, the storm absolutely hammers New York City, northern New Jersey, and eastern Pennsylvania. Maryland, and even DC and Boston get buried in heavy, wet snow, all fueled by a monster 992 millibar low offshore. If this solution is correct, we are looking at a major snowstorm for Boston from Tuesday night into Wednesday morning next week. We just have to nail down the final details. But what about the American GFS model? It's just finishing its latest run, and I think we have the whole forecast ready to analyze. Let's take it all the way to Monday morning. I haven't even seen this new data yet, so we're discovering this together. And right away, there's a huge conflict. The GFS is way more aggressive with a wintry mix in Arkansas, and it absolutely refuses to bring snow that far south into Oklahoma. The model war has officially begun. But it does reveal a band of moderate snow cutting right through Kansas and pushing into northern Missouri. This is heading directly over Kansas City. Now, if this is how it plays out on Monday, could we see accumulating snow in places like Street Louis? Absolutely. Well, Street Louis is in the path, but I was thinking of Kansas City. The real story here, however, is this nasty, treacherous wintry mix brewing in central to northern Arkansas. We have to ask, is the GFS model onto something big here? And then watch as it marches eastward. And here we go. Let's update this live. And here comes the GFS model's latest run. That first system? That's just the opening act. We've already broken that down. Now, get ready for the main event. The second storm system. A supercharged low-pressure bomb. This low is on a dangerous track, slicing right across the Appalachians, which means it's an all-out rain event for the Mid-South. But just to the north, it's a completely different and more menacing story. This is new snow falling on top of more snow from the system just before it. And look at that! The classic signal of cold air damming is appearing in all the usual spots, the foothills and mountains of the Appalachians, trapping that frigid air. This brings us into Tuesday morning, with that low pressure cutting right across the Carolinas. And what does that mean? A juiced-up winter storm for Ohio and for Pennsylvania. We're talking a nasty, wintry mix, and it even tries to throw some of that mess into New York City. But for the city itself, it's mostly rain because of how close the low-pressure center is. This will create a massive mixing battle in southern New England. For the interior Northeast, however, it's a whole other beast. With that cold air already locked firmly in place, this is setting up to be a huge, blockbuster snowstorm for you guys. And then we have to watch what happens next. So what's the snow signal telling us? This is the European ensemble model. shown in 3-day increments. You can see it clearly, the footprint of snow covering areas of the Central Plains and into Missouri. An inch, maybe 2 inches of snow is possible out of this first wave, the kind of thing that meets winter weather advisory criteria. But there's also a more sinister signal for ice. Now, this first part is what's happening this weekend, but stick with me, because what I'm about to show you is what could happen as we move into early next week. Don't miss the next part. And that's a signal for a few hundredths of an inch of ice. A little hint from the blend of all models is popping up in Arkansas, Missouri, and right in that mid-Mississippi Valley area. And then, when we look at the signal for the eastern U.S., you see that big blob of snow right here? That is what's unfolding right now. But then, watch what pops up again right behind it in the exact same area. This is the heavy signal we've been warning you about the major winter storm risk for next week. We're talking a couple inch snowfall average across the Ohio Valley, but that jumps to a few inch snowfall average across the Northeast. I mean, even look at Northern Virginia and the Mid-Atlantic. That is a hefty, hefty signal. I'm getting distracted by our dog barking in the background. Even he knows this is a big deal. I do apologize for that, but this is a heavy signal for the Northeast that you just can't ignore. I mean, we even have a 4 to 5 inch snowfall average showing up across areas of New England. That is a pretty solid signal. And if we look at the ice potential from this, there is a definite and worrying signal for this, too. This here is the potential ice threat for the midweek storm as we get into next week, and it's a dangerous combination of that storm and the weekend system across the mid-Atlantic. So we will continue to piece this all together. You know, our big focus is the immediate system this weekend, and then we will be able to get ridiculously detailed on this potential monster winter storm for next week. So, let's talk about the bigger pattern, guys, and listen closely. I have every reason to believe that December is just getting warmed up and is going to continue to deliver blasts of cold Arctic air down into the lower 48. And with it, the potential for more major winter storms. What if I told you that next week is when everything changes? Take a look at this. This massive area of blue and green signals a deep, low pressure system. Now, compare that to these bright reds, oranges, and pinks. That's a powerful wall of high-pressure building. I really wish I had my drawing tool ready for this. I can't circle it for you just yet, but stay with me, because I might just pull it up in a second to pinpoint the exact battleground. What you're seeing is a massive ridge spiking right into Alaska, a pattern we call a negative EPO. And what does that do? It acts like a giant plunger, forcing frigid air down into an active storm track. Do you see this small finger of blue right here? That's our low pressure, the first hint of the coming storm. This is the signature of our storm system for next week, and it's being fed by that enormous cold air source, which is pumping Arctic air right into that moisture. But the story doesn't end there. I want you to see what happens as we move past next week, even though we're getting pretty far out in the forecast. There's another ominous signature starting to show up. Is it just a wave of dry, cold air, or something much bigger? This is developing way out around the 6th, 7th, and 8th of the month. That's next weekend, and you can already see a trough starting to take shape. And we're not just guessing here. This is from the Euro Ensemble, which is one of the most trusted long-range models in the world. This is a powerful signal for a deep trough digging into the eastern U.S., while a monster ridge builds out west. That means, once again, another blast of cold air and the potential for another major storm next weekend. And the pattern keeps going. Now, listen, we're venturing into uncharted territory here, deep into the forecast models. But the one thing I consistently see is this persistent troughing, this dip in the jet stream over Canada and the northern parts of the U.S. I want you to think of this entire blue zone as a gigantic, detached piece of the polar vortex, a huge reservoir of Arctic air just waiting. This means any storm system that develops to the south will have a direct pipeline to tap into that frigid air, dramatically raising the stakes for significant winter weather. Now, watch what happens when we push the timeline all the way out to the 10th of the month. We finally see some movement. But one thing remains crystal clear. That giant blob of blue is still parked right up there. This tells me we are in for repeated drops of brutally cold air down into the lower 48. So what's really happening here? With all of this relentless cold air building up to our north, we're setting a dangerous stage. The blue indicates troughing, the very mechanism that drags that cold air south, and what this is creating is unbelievable. We are essentially building a glacier of cold air, so to speak, right over our cold air source region. We are literally locking in the deep freeze at the source, right where our coldest air comes from. Now, normally, when that Arctic air drops down from the higher latitudes, it has a chance to warm up a bit, to modify. But what if it doesn't do that this time? In fact, there's a real possibility it could actually get even colder on its journey south. To put it simply, we have an incredibly strong cold air source locked into our north, ready to unleash multiple Arctic blasts throughout the entire month of December. And this pattern appears to hold steady all the way out to about the 10th or 11th of the month. Now let's switch from patterns to pure numbers. If we look at the Euro Ensemble's temperature forecast, focus on the blues and the greens. This indicates colder than average temperatures. But what does colder than average really mean for you at home? Let me break it down. If your average high is 55 degrees and the model is forecasting 10 degrees below average, your high temperature might only be in the mid-40s. I hope that clears things up. Now, on the other hand, the warmer colors you see on your screen represent above average temperatures. So let's start this off by looking at next Tuesday. What's the takeaway? Below average, bone-chilling temperatures are going to continue their grip on the central and eastern U.S. Remember all that talk about a December warm-up, a potential torch? Go ahead and wipe that from your memory, because it is not happening anymore. Let's look about a week from today. It still looks frigid across the eastern U.S., while the western U.S. looks pretty warm. So, the big question is, are we ever going to warm up? Maybe, but honestly, I am not confident we will. As we push all the way into next weekend, another brutal pool of cold air just dives down into the eastern U.S., okay? And I do think we're going to see a fight from the ridge, but even after we get into that second week of December, around the 8th, 9th, or 10th, bam, another push of cold air drops down, and it just keeps coming. And if you step back and look at the bigger picture, our cold air just keeps reloading from the exact same area up here. It's just one blast of cold air after another. So that perfectly validates what I was just showing you. Now, this is where my mind is blown. I'm going to pull this up on the fly because it just hit me. And this is critical. I completely forgot to show you the watches and warnings for the winter storm about to move in this weekend, but we'll let that slide. What truly blows my mind is the 8 to 14-day temperature outlook. I'm just going to say it, I think this is bogus. And I always get excited to look at this in the winter, to see if it backs up what we're seeing in the model guidance. This did not make me excited this afternoon. In fact, I think it's dead wrong. This 8 to 14-day temperature outlook runs from the 5th through the 11th. I just do not see how we're going to have above average temperature chances or even above average temperatures for this entire area of the southeast. I am, however, convinced we'll have below average temperatures for this northern area. Absolutely. But here's the thing. I think they should have dragged this blue, this cold, down much further. I'm really not sure what the logic was there. If anything, I would have kept it near normal, dropping all the way down into Alabama and Georgia and Mississippi. But, we could get lost in the sauce with these details until the cows come home. But now look at the 6 to 10-day temperature outlook from the 3rd through the 7th. I guess this makes a bit more sense. But I would have probably chopped this warm zone off a little bit more. It's just a bizarre Climate Prediction Center outlook for today. I don't get it. So, what's really going on? Let's talk about the MJO. I know it's a long video, I'm just talking and talking, but I love the weather, guys. Okay, and speaking of the MJO, I don't have anything to draw on this, but phase 4, 5, and 6, these are our warm phases, correct? Well, phase 7 is where we are right now. This is a game changer. It favors cold air pouring into the US, but a lot of times that cold has to fight off a stubborn ridge for areas of the southeast and the southern tier of the country. even the eastern US sometimes. But the bottom line is it favors a cold air dump, which is exactly times what we're getting right now. Today's the 27th. We should be right in Phase 7. But here's the real story. Phase 8, 1 and 2 are the seriously times cold phases. And guess where we're heading? Right towards Phase 8, guys. And on the latest Euro model, it has us racing there by next week and then getting fully locked into Phase 8. And listen, you have to understand this. Phase 8 is the classic cold and winter weather pattern for December in the central and eastern US, and for almost the entire country. So, we are getting there. We are moving into a very favorable phase. And guys, don't miss this next part, because here's what I think is really going on. The models are completely struggling with this. I mean, they are truly lost. The models are really struggling to figure out the MJO's next move, and honestly, who can blame them? We're witnessing a chaotic battle between massive high-latitude blocking, a stretched polar vortex, and that one wild card, the sudden stratospheric warming that has thrown a wrench in everything. Now, I've deliberately stopped trying to predict that stratospheric fallout, and there's a very specific reason why. After seeing what everyone else is forecasting, and I'm just speaking for myself here, it's become crystal clear. Absolutely nobody has a firm grip on what this sudden stratospheric warming will do. But what if they're all missing the most important clue? So let's cut through the noise. Here's the one thing we know for a fact. There's been a massive disruption over the North Pole, and it has unleashed a huge wave of Arctic air southward. Now, what happens when you mix that icy blast with our steady march towards MJO Phase 8? The potential here, guys, is off the charts. That's the critical setup. But don't go anywhere, because the most important part is what happens next. I've poured all my energy into this one because the signals are just screaming. I get excited about these patterns, and this is the biggest one I've seen in a long time. And I don't know if other channels are seeing this yet, but you need to understand the stakes. Because this isn't just another snow forecast for the north. What I'm seeing could have major implications for my audience right here in the south. Could this be the one? The storm that dives deep into territory that rarely sees winter's full force? This is why I'm having so much fun tracking this. The stakes are getting higher every hour, and you'll want to be prepared. Don't miss the next part. Be sure to join me tomorrow morning, because we're going to reveal the timeline and pinpoint exactly who is in the crosshairs. Trust me, you'll want to see this.